Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the second shelf. On this beautiful sunny day, I have good news. I bought books and I will share them with you. Isn't that exciting? Yes, it is. And I have a stack of about 7 or something. And of course, I tried to do the thing, that you hold up the stack and everything fell down. I'm just not good at that. So don't do the stack thing. And just discuss the books one by one. And the first book I bought is this one, The House on the Lagoon by, can you see the author's name somewhere? I don't even know. Yeah, here on the bottom, Rosario Ferre in red. First published in 1995. Rosario Ferre was a Puerto Rican-born author. She died 3 or 4 years ago, I think in 2016, 2018, something like that. This book was a National Book Award finalist, so it was written in English. I have never read her. Shame on me. And I picked up this book because of Karen from Run Right Reads. She runs this book club, and this year's theme is Caribbean authors. So each month, she picks 2 books from a different island or territory in the Caribbean. And in March, she picked Puerto Rico. And this was one of her 2 picks. And I really hope to be able to get to it in March. But I can't promise, Karen. But no problem, because there will be a Caribathon sometime in June, probably, and then I can read it for the Caribathon. But I should probably also tell you what the book is about, right? It's a family saga, and the premise is that you have Quentin and Isabel, husband and wife, and Isabel is writing the family story, the family history. But when Quentin discovers the manuscript, he is not pleased because in his view, Isabel doesn't tell the true story. So it's also, as I understood from the blurb, it is the story of this family interconnected with the story of Puerto Rico, but also the story of this marriage with quite different views on what happened. It sounded fascinating, and like I said, I want to try my best to participate. And otherwise, I will read it for Caribathon. The next book is sci-fi for an ongoing project. Ursula Le Guin's book, The Word for World is Forest, first published in 1972. And it's the 5th in the Hainish cycle. And I'm reading the whole cycle, the novels of the cycle in chronological order. And I'm doing that together with Adam from formerly known as Momentum Mori, but I will leave a link to his Instagram down below because he's still very active on Instagram. And this one is quite short. It's more a novella, and it's set on the planet, forgot, a peaceful world it was, and they are conquered by a bloodthirsty people, and then plot ensues from there. I have never read this one, so it's not a reread for me, and as you can tell, I know very little, but that doesn't matter because I decided already that I will read all of her novels in the Hainish cycle in chronological order. If you remember, I also tried Ursula Le Guin's fantasy, the Earthsea series. I tried the first one, even though I deeply, deeply admire Ursula Le Guin. The fantasy was just not for me. It bored me. So I will stick to her more sci-fi, and this one will be the next read. And I think we will take a little break in April, and then we will resume in May. So this will be our May read. The next book I bought is also quite short, and also for a buddy read, and that is Woman at Point Zero by Nawal El-Saadawi. I know, it's pitiful. my attempts to pronounce the name in the sort of original way. But anyway, Nawal al-Saadawi is an Arabic author from Egypt. She was born in 1931, and she published, she's also an activist. She was a psychiatrist, a women's rights activist who went to prison in the 1980s. I mean, not went to prison, she was put in prison. That is a stupid expression, went to prison, as if you go to prison voluntarily. No, she was put in prison because of her work. And this book, this short little novella, was published first in 1975 in Arabic, but not in Egypt because it was too controversial, but in the Lebanon. And the English translation is by Sherif Hetata. The book follows, or I should start with the fact that the author actually visited women in prison for a project, a psychiatric or psychology project of women in prison, and there she met one particular woman, Firdaus, who was convicted for murder and was about to be executed. And the book, the novel, is based on this woman. We already started, as you can see, and it's quite heart-wrenching. I mean, Adam with, I read this with Adam and Kathleen. I don't know whether I mentioned that already. And Adam compared it in our first check-in with, you know, a woman like Tess of the D'Urbervilles, just shit piled on shit happening to you, and mistreatment and abuse piled on abuse and abuse. So yeah, but I will report back once we are finished. But this is my first novel that I read by this author, and I'm quite ashamed to admit that, but yeah, it's just the way it is. Next up is a book that I bought on a whim, I have to say. I don't even know how I came across the book, but it's in my quest, you know, to find some kind of fantasy author that I like as much as I do like N.K. Jemisin, if you remember my gush in the last video. And I came across this one, Rebecca Roanhorse. She is an American indigenous author, a fantasy sci-fi writer, and I thought I'll give it a try. Black Sun, it's the first in a series between Sky and Earth, I think the series is called. Let me check. Between Earth and Sky. No, almost. Just the other way around. And this was published last year. And it is a drawing on pre-Columbian America with the lore of the land back there. That sort of drew me in. And there's the reincarnation of a god, the god of crows, and then you have this cast of priests, the sun priest, and there's all kinds of shenanigans going on with the other priests. It sounded like something I might like, and I read the first couple of pages and thought that sounds interesting. So in my quest, and if I don't like it, at least I really admire the cover. So I have a beautiful book, even if I don't like it. If you have read this one, let me know. The next book I bought is also sort of a try, and that is Mary Benedict's The Only Woman in the Room, first published last year. And why a try? Because Mary Benedict, she writes historical fiction, and this is also historical fiction. I read a book by her about Einstein's wife that I thought was just not, that deep. And I tried one other book by Mary Benedict and had the same. They are not badly written or anything, and they, read, you just sort of breeze through them, but it's not the kind of historical fiction I tend to gravitate towards. I need something with a little more heft. But the woman that this book is about is I'm fascinated by her. It's about the Austrian actress Hedy Lamarr, who was very successful as an actress in the early 1930s and 1920s, 1930s in Austria, and then fled because of the Nazis, fled to the United States and became a Hollywood star. She changed her name. Hedy is her first name, but Lamarr is a name that MGM gave her because it sounded more mysterious. And she was called the most beautiful woman ever, and was really successful. But that's not why I find her fascinating. She also developed a new kind of guidance system for submarine missiles together with a musician. I mean, that combination I thought was so fascinating. So despite my misgivings about Mary Benedict, for me, I mean, she's a very popular author, and if you love her, good for you. But she is normally just not my thing. But I hope that because of the subject, I will get over myself and enjoy the book. The next book I bought not for a buddy read, but for a book club, and that is Mel's book club, Read Around the World. You are all familiar with that because I mentioned it 100,000 times. I will leave a link to her new website down below because the book club, Mel moved the book club from Goodreads to a different medium. And if you want to participate, you have to sign up for the newsletter of her website, and then you will get all the information. Just in case you want to know, the format is still the same. Each month we read a book from a female author from a different country, and we vote on which country and which book 2 months prior. And in March, we will go to Montenegro. And I don't think I've ever read an author from Montenegro. And the book is Catherine the Small and the Great. Can you see that? Yes. By Olja Knežević. And as you can see, Knežević is spelled with a Z with a little thingy on top. And if you look at my show notes, there is no thingy on the Z because I didn't know how to do it. So I misspelled the name of the author in the show notes. That's what you get. But anyway, Olja Knežević is a best-selling author born in Montenegro, lived in London for quite a while, and is now living in Zagreb. And this book has been translated, and I guess from the Montenegrin, because it doesn't say, by Paula Gordon and Ellen Elias Bursac. Because in Montenegro you also speak Croatian or Serbian, but I guess. If anybody knows, I try to find out at least for half an hour, because if I can't spell the name correctly in my show notes, then at least I should know in which language she writes. But I couldn't find anything. So if you are familiar with this author and know in which language she writes, please let me know. And the book is about a woman called Catherine and her life and trying to make a life and find her place in the world between the 1980s and present day. And that's all I know. Because I just blindly follow the pick of each month for Mel's book club. And I buy the book if I can get a hold of it and read it. And it's most of the time a very, very pleasant surprise. So I can only highly, highly encourage you to join our book club. The last book I bought, and I want to show you finally, is a German book. Not a German author, by the way, I will get into that, but a book written in German because I'm such a slacker with my, German book club. I did so well in 2020. I will leave a link to the Goodreads group down below, just in case you're interested. Mel and I in last year said to each other that we want to increase our German reads, so books written in German, whether it's from an Austrian author or a Swiss author, doesn't matter, but written originally in German. And I did really well. I read 1 to 2 books each month by a German author, and now it's March. And I'm a real slacker this year. But anyway, there's a book club coming up, my in real life book club. And it was my turn to pick the book. So I picked this one, Ada's Raum, which means Ada's Room, by Sharon Dodua Otto. And she is has written this book in German. It just came out in February, but she is a British author, actually. But she has lived in Berlin for quite a while, and she has written poetry in German and received the very prestigious Ingeborg Bachmann Prize. And now she's written this novel in German. I thought that is fascinating, and the story is also fascinating. It's about a woman called Ada from it's not clear from the blurb whether it's one woman from always the same woman, because the book opens in 1459 and goes up to the present day. So it starts in Africa and goes in Togo, and then it goes to all kinds of other places, and it ends up in Berlin, where our author also lived. I'm not quite sure whether it's a reincarnation of the same woman or whether it's more a symbol of a woman, and we have this story through the generation. But it sounded fascinating, and I'm especially interested in authors, writing in a different language than their mother tongue, because I do the same. If you follow my channel, you probably know that I was born in Germany. I now live in Germany again. I've lived for more than 20 years in Holland, in Amsterdam. And I've written in German, but I've also written in Dutch, and now I'm writing in English. So I find this fascinating, how you as an author, how you choose your language. So this book was my pick for the book club, and of course I will report back once I read it, like with all the other books that I showed you. And this was it, my friends, my March book haul, 7 books. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching. As always, I'm looking forward to your comments, and I'm caught up with the comments, so yeah, me. Sorry that it sometimes takes me so long, but I will always answer them. I can promise you that. But sometimes it takes a week or 2 or maybe even 3. But anyway, leave me a comment about any of the books that I hauled or books that you bought this month, and I'll see you all soon in the next one.